So alhamdulillah for that. And we are grateful to Allah that we have been guided to have access to the authentic chains of narration that are validated and connected back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is the only way for us to get that information, yani to be sure about the information from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So continuing on with the book that we're reading, which is Collection of Goodness, which is a compilation of lessons that were given by our Shaykh, Shaykh Abdullah, the son of Muhammad, rahimahullah, who was a great pious Muslim and a great righteous pious Muslim and a great scholar of Islam. And he taught a lot of people and he dedicated his life to teaching of Islam. So this book basically is a compilation that was done by his students of his lessons that he gave. And those students, they took their transcripts, they took what they wrote from the Shaykh, and then they printed in a book way after the death of that Shaykh, and now that has been translated to English. So we got to page 114, which is titled, lesson 23, it's titled, The Shaykhs Are Not Impeccable. This lesson was given by the Hafiz, the scholar of Islamic law, Shaykh Abdullah, the son of Muhammad al-Abdari. May Allah Ta'ala have mercy upon him. And it is about clarifying the obligation of warning against the unlawful and that the Shaykhs are not protected from error. This lesson was heard from him by Shaykh Nabir, the son of Muhammad al-Sharif, Shaykh Samir, the son of Sami al-Qawli, Shaykh Jamil, the son of Muhammad al-Halim, and Shaykh Muhammad, the son of Mustafa al-Bakri. Radiyallahu anhum wa hafidhahumullah wa rahimahumullah. Shaykh Abdullah, may Allah have vast mercy upon him, said, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe. To him belong the endowments and proper commendations. May Allah Ta'ala raise the rank of our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and his Muslim relatives and protect his nation from that which the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam fears for it. So that's usually the basic type of introduction that the sheikhs do when they start their classes. They mention Alhamdulillah, and then they say the as-salah and as-salam upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they make usually dua for the Muslims. Thereafter, there are books that are famous containing things that are warned against, like the book Tafsirul Jalalayn. This book, that is Tafsirul Jalalayn, I am astonished how it has remained among the people. It is read and it contains kufr things. This is heedlessness. During this era, there were no sultans that monitored sufficiently. Had there been sultans that monitored sufficiently, this book would not have remained used among the people. So as you know, the Islamic infrastructure, if there was a caliph, if there was, let's say, an Islamic infrastructure, then there would be a system by which the Muslim authorities, those who are in charge, they would be sure that whoever was teaching was qualified to teach. They would be sure that there would be quality control, right? Because this is Islam, and it's the religious trust, it's the amana ash-shar'iyya. It is, and it's something heavy. So the people who are in charge, right, whether it's the caliph or the governor or the sultan, they have to make sure that in their area that the people are getting the knowledge that they have to get. They got to make sure that the people are being taught by those who are qualified. So nowadays there is no infrastructure. But now what is there? There's just like teams, right? Like teams of Muslims that get together, right? Like-minded Muslims that get together, and they say, you know what, we're going to do this obligation and that obligation. Because now the situation has gotten to such a point that It's a free-for-all. Basically, everyone does their own thing. So in the past, there used to be more organization, more control, quality control, but nowadays there isn't. But still, these people that get together, these teams that they get together, they still have to fear Allah. So they still have to make sure that, for example, the person who is suitable to teach is teaching, the person who's qualified to teach is teaching, the person that is teaching, that they are, for example, benefiting the people. So this has to be done, and there's no room for ego in that, meaning just because, for example, you, let's say, are upset at a certain person, that you make sure that they, for example, don't get picked to teach, etc., because that doesn't have any integrity. There wouldn't be any integrity in that. So what needs to happen is, what would be beneficial for the people? Is the person able to communicate properly? Is the person able to use the correct words? Is the person just going to be reading in monotone? Is the person going to be able to connect with the audience, etc.? And that's how you would go about it. And along with being qualified, along with, let's say, having the connected chains of knowledge, etc. But anyways, all of us, or the majority of us, or speaking for myself, we are teachers out of necessity, right? If there were scholars that were alive, or if there were scholars that sufficient, scholars that covered the need, then we wouldn't have to be teaching. But since there isn't, and there's so many things that need to be essential matters that need to be taught, this is why. Teachers out of necessity. So alhamdulillah, that at least we get to participate in that. So, just like the Shaykh said, had there been sultans that monitored sufficiently, this book would not have remained used among the people. If there was that proper infrastructure, and they had monitored things correctly, they were doing their job, then they would make sure that that book called Tafsirul Jalalain, that it would not be in the market available for people to purchase at their will. Meaning that book would be taken off the shelves and it wouldn't be made, let's say, accessible to the regular people. Why? Because of the following things that we're going to mention. Al-Fakhr al-Razi, prior to this by 300 years, he mentioned a kufr thing that is mentioned in Al-Jalalain. He clarified that it is kufr. He warned against it 300 years ago, yet despite that, this book remained used among the people. What is this heedlessness? This kufr matter is that it is mentioned in that book that they claim the Prophet ﷺ was reciting Surah Al-Najm, and so this upcoming story, and for all, that's why it's important to pay attention in the sessions of knowledge, this upcoming story is a blasphemous story. It's not true. It didn't occur. It didn't take place. This did not happen. This is something that some people say they made it up, they fabricated it about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they claim that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was reciting Surah Al-Najm, and when he reached the verse, أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى, they claim the devil spoke on his tongue, and he recited that which is not in the Quran. And he thought it was from the Quran. And it contained what was praised for those three idols. And then Jibreel came and told him that this is not from the Quran. And so the Prophet ﷺ became sad, and God revealed this verse, which is from Surah Al-Hajj. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ مِن رَسُولٍ وَلَا نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا إِذَا تَمَنَّى ألقى الشيطان في أمنيته فينسخ الله ما يلقي الشيطان ثم يحكم الله آياته والله عليم حكيم. This is the end of the statement in the book. This statement is mentioned in the part of the book that is attributed to Al-Jalal Al-Mahalli. This book is attributed to two people, Al-Jalal Al-Suyuti and Al-Jalal Al-Mahalli. This statement is found in the second half of the book, which is attributed to Al-Jalal Al-Mahalli. What is correct is that the Prophet ﷺ was reciting from Surah Al-Najm, and when he reached to this spot, the devil spoke, praising these idols. And there were idol worshippers close to him, and they became happy, and they said, "He did not praise our idols until now." When the Prophet ﷺ reached the part in the surah where it is recommended to prostrate in Surah Al-Najm, the Prophet ﷺ prostrated, and the idol worshippers prostrated with him. As for the story that was inserted into the tafsir of Al-Mahalli, Al-Fakhr al-Razi says, whoever believes it is a kafir, a non-Muslim. This is a big harm. How did this book remain among the people? Perhaps it has been published 20 or 30 editions. This is a kufr matter among the kufr matters. Some people, when they find some statements mentioned by a famous author, they say this is what is correct even if it contradicts the religion and contradicts the basis of the creed. They say this author does not commit a mistake. This is a huge tragedy. The Prophet ﷺ said, "ما منكم من أحد إلا يؤخذ من قوله ويترك غير رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم." It means there is no one among you except that some of what he says is accepted and some of what he says is rejected, except the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And in another narration, except the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It means every single individual from among the nation, any other than the prophets, some of his speech is erroneous. Yani, any person other than the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it's possible that he makes a mistake in the religion. Any person other than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's possible that they make a mistake in Islam. So who? Al-Imam al-Shafi'i radiyallahu anhu. Like who? Al-Imam Malik radiyallahu anhu. Like who? Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal radiyallahu anhu. Like who? Al-Imam Abu Hanifa radiyallahu anhu. In their ijtihad, yani meaning in something that is their ijtihad, or giving a fatwa, or something like that, right? Even, and as long as they're not a wali, as long as they're not a righteous Muslim, then it's possible that they'll fall into blasphemy. Even someone that is considered an imam in Islam, and they might make a mistake. They might write something wrong in their book. They might give the wrong fatwa. They might give the wrong judgment. However, the possibility of that is low. It's a slim chance. But because of this hadith, we know that that's the case. So we have to go by that. The only ones who are impeccable are the prophets. But the righteous Muslims, they are not like that. This includes the companions. And those who came after them. Some people are not in compliance with this hadith. They think that it is impossible for their sheikhs, the sheikhs of the tariqah, to commit a mistake. They think that what they say, it is as if it is a revealed speech. And you do find this amongst many people in those who affiliate themselves with Islam. You do find this amongst many people. So, and it is something. It's not like a hallucination or an imagination or like a reach. It's not a reach. It's something that actually is known. Something that many people do. And this is wrong, obviously. If the student becomes certain that the shaykh has made a mistake, he brings it to his attention. That's step number one. He brings it to his attention. And if that shaykh retracts the mistake, then that is it. Because the objective has been fulfilled. If your shaykh makes a mistake and you bring it up to his attention and you clarify for him and that shaykh fixes the mistake, then that's it. That's all that needs to be done. The objective has been achieved. And if not, yani if the sheikh is, let's say, if the mistake is mentioned to the sheikh and he does not fix it, then that student leaves out the saying of that sheikh and instead follows the rules of the religion. And he abandons that sheikh and instead he follows the rules of the religion. Shaykh Abdul Qadir and the Shaykh Al-Rifa'i, may Allah Ta'ala raise their ranks, clarified this fact. They said this. However, those who affiliate themselves to some of the tariqah, Sufi orders, like the Qadiriyya, the Shadiliyya, and the Naqshbandiyya, many of them, whatever is attributed to one of their shaykhs, they believe that it is the truth, even if it is wrong. Had it been the case that the wali, righteous Muslim, is above making a mistake, then Abu Bakr would not have made a mistake, nor Umar, because they are the best awliya, righteous Muslims of this nation until Judgment Day. Even the Mahdi is not at their level. Our Master Umar radiallahu anhu admitted that he committed a mistake. One time a female jurist, a female scholar of the Islamic law, she corrected him on something that he made a mistake on. And so he retracted his mistake and announced it on the minbar that he made a mistake. He said, a woman said what is correct and Umar committed a mistake. So how about those righteous Muslims that came after him, like Abu al-Hasan al-Shadili and Shah Naqshband? What would their status be relative to Umar? Many people went overboard with their love to their shaykhs and they committed kufr and they exited from Islam because of contradicting the religion, because of believing in incorrect belief, etc. Our shaykh, Shaykh Ahmad Abdul Rahman, may Allah Ta'ala accept his deeds. He was among those who performed the most acts of worship and among the most knowledgeable people of that region. Someone like him was rare during that time. He told me, and Shaykh Abdullah is saying about his shaykh, he told me out of his cautiousness, if you see me committing any disliked matter, then alert me, and he bring it to my attention. He did not say unlawful, he said disliked, makruh. So basically, the shaykh of our shaykh told Shaykh Abdullah, he said, if you ever see me doing something that is makruh, something disliked, bring it to my attention, yani, so I can leave it out. He didn't say, yani, alert me or let me know if I did something haram, no. Yani, meaning, even something that's not haram, but it is disliked, makruh, I want you to tell me about it, so that he can fix it, so that he can stop doing it. How did those people believe that the devil was able to make the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam speak words that are kufr, praising the idols, and that the Prophet ﷺ thought that those words are from the Quran? That claim is kufr. We seek refuge with Allah. Yani, it's one of those things where logic tells you this is a lie. Logic tells you there's no way that the Prophet ﷺ would say words that were dictated to him by the shaitan, and that the Prophet ﷺ would think that those are words from the Quran. So of course the Prophet ﷺ would be able to know that that's not the Quran and instead that that's the shaitan. But how could someone believe that? And how could someone claim to be Muslim and say that and believe that about the Prophet ﷺ? Because it's a ridiculous thing. It's an insane thing. We seek refuge with Allah. Yani we say A'udhu Billah to such a thing. In the past, over 1100 years ago, over 1100 years ago, there was a man called Al-Hallaj. He was known among some people that he was a Sufi, but he was not really a Sufi. Rather, he was just an imitator, and he was a fraud. Atrocious words were said by him, and some deceived people followed him, and they thought he was on the truth. Due to the severity of their ignorance, they considered him a righteous Muslim, and they followed him in kufr. He called himself Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Basically, he called himself Allah. And he said, I am God. We seek refuge in Allah. Furthermore, this man, when his matter became apparent and he was brought before the Muslim judge, Abu Umar al-Maliki, who was the Muslim judge in Baghdad, and to the caliph during that time, and his name was Al-Muqtadir Billah, the Abbasid. May Allah Ta'ala have mercy upon them both. He implemented upon him the judgment of the apostate. He was taken and his arms and legs were cut, then his head was cut, then his body was burned in fire and his ashes were thrown in the fire. His followers, instead of repenting, they became fanatical for him, and they said, Al-Hallaj appeared to us the second day, and he said, you claim like those cows claim that I was killed and hung. Rather, my likeness was killed. They lied. They also said that his blood flowed on the floor and wrote, La ilaha illallah, Al-Hallaj is the wali of Allah. And this did not occur. He did not appear to them, nor did his blood flow on the ground and write. All of that is a lie. Rather, what they wanted was to support their call instead of repenting and leaving that man, Al-Hajjaj, Al-Hallaj. The righteous, truthful scholars, their habit is that they do not claim they are impeccable. Rather, they are afraid of something coming upon them that will harm them. Our Shaykh Ahmed Abdul Rahman, he was among the most knowledgeable and among the people who performed many acts of worship. He used to complete reciting the entire Quran once a day, and he used to fast 3 months other than Ramadan. It was as if he was an angel in the image of a human, from how strong he was doing acts of worship and how detached he was from the worldly matters. From his early youth, he went to Zabid to seek the knowledge, and then he was stricken with fever. The owner of the house used to leave the house and leave him there alone with his wife. Then this woman started being inclined towards him while he was sick. The fever weakened him, and despite that, his nature was aroused within him. But then his grandfather, who had died prior to that by some time, came and got in between him and that woman. This sheikh did not consider himself to be impeccable. Rather, he told me, if you see me doing a disliked matter, then alert me. This is how the truthful sheikhs are. Not like Rajab Deeb, the one who used to say, we are miniature prophets. He also said to his followers, if Munkar and Nakir came to you in the grave, tell them we are the students of Shaykh Rajab. Abu Bakr did not say this, nor did Umar, nor did Uthman, nor did Ali. And no one among the righteous Muslims who came after them said this. This person, Rajab, is a kafir, a non-Muslim, an enemy of Allah, and an ignoramus. This saying of his, he said it in Damascus, and he has followers there too. God makes some people causes of sedition and makes them have followers in their misguidance. Allah Ta'ala willed for Pharaoh to have followers. This Rajab Deeb, the misguided person of his time, Allah made certain people listen to his words and follow him in his kufr, in his disbelief. Some of them said, it is permissible for us to say, I testify no one is God except Allah, and Rajab Deeb is the messenger of Allah. Which is explicit blasphemy, and it's not permissible at all. Hence, it is an obligation to warn against him and from the likes of him. If one of you knows someone who goes to his gatherings and attends his sessions and listens to his speech and did not warn him himself or through a third party, he has committed an enormous sin. And the one who falls short in ordering the lawful, forbidding the unlawful, when able, they fall into an enormous sin. Likewise, the group, the Brotherhood and the Wahhabis and the Tahrir group, it is an obligation to warn against all of them. All of those are among the seditions of this era, the fitna of this era. God willed for them to be causes of misguidance, and He willed misguidance for their followers. Allah Ta'ala does whatever He wills, and He is the one who judges, and nobody has authority over Him. He is the one who orders, and no one orders Him. It is not said, why did He do such and such? These beasts have souls. The cow, the sheep, the chicken, and other than that, God made it permissible for us to kill them for our pleasure, and He forbade us to kill the human and eat his flesh. And we and the beasts, both of us feel pain from a wound and from having the throat cut. God made this permissible and made that forbidden, and it is not said why did He do this. And we can't object to Allah. Likewise, the humans and the jinn, God willed in eternity for some of them to be righteous Muslims, and willed for some of them not to be righteous, and He willed for some of them to be non-Muslims. One does not object to Allah. God does not benefit from any of our worship, nor the worship of the angels. Rather, we benefit from our worship. Likewise, those non-Muslims do not harm Him. This is why we say He is not asked about what He does, and we are the ones who are questioned. Nobody's in a position to object to Allah. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Moving on to lesson 24, talking about the Mu'tazila and the Mushabbiha. This lesson was given by Al-Hafiz, the great scholar of Islamic law, Shaykh Abdullah Muhammad Al-Abdari. May Allah Ta'ala have mercy upon him. The lesson is about clarifying the correct saying about the judgment of the Mu'tazila and refuting the Mushabbiha, those who liken God to the creations. This lesson was heard from him by Al-Shaykh Nabil, the son of Muhammad Al-Sharif, Al-Shaykh Samir, the son of Sami Al-Qadi, Al-Shaykh Abdul Razzaq, the son of Muhammad Al-Sharif, Shaykh Jamil, the son of Muhammad Halim, and Al-Shaykh Muhammad, the son of Mustafa Al-Bakri. Shaykh Abdullah, may Allah Ta'ala have vast mercy upon him, said, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe. To Him belong the endowments and proper commendations. May Allah raise the rank of our Master Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his Muslim relatives, and protect his nation from that which the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam fears for it. Thereafter, some people have disagreed about the Mu'tazila, and so some scholars judge them as non-Muslims without restriction, and some scholars said to leave out judging them as non-Muslims. And what is correct is judging as non-Muslims those who it is confirmed that they have fallen into kufr, disbelief. A non-Muslim, because he associated partners with Allah. Such a person attributed an attribute that is specific to Allah to other than Allah. Likewise, the one among them who says that the Quran is created and says that God is mutakallim by creating the speech in others, and that He is not mutakallim with a speech that is an attribute affirmed to His being, then he is also a kafir, non-Muslim. If someone said, how would such a person be judged as a kafir, while 3 of the Abbasid caliphs agreed with the Mu'tazila in their saying that the Quran is created, and none of the scholars judged them as non-Muslims. Rather, Imam Ahmad addressed Al-Mu'tasim, one of the 3, by saying, O leader of the believers. So basically, the people who they do not agree that we should warn against the Mu'tazila, those people, they're trying to say, oh, well, you can't be against the Mu'tazila, you can't warn against them, you can't say that they're non-Muslims, because there were 3 caliphs that they had interactions with, and there was one caliph that had, adopted some of the things that they say, but not to the point of it being sinful, not to the point of it being blasphemy, not to the point of it taking him out of Islam. So that's why he was referred to by Imam Ahmad as leader of the believers, Amirul Mu'mineen, because he was still Muslim. Not because, even though he was claimed to be Mu'tazili, that doesn't make you a non-Muslim. Rather, the judgment is that for the person who claims to be Mu'tazili, it's a case-by-case basis. If he believes that the slave creates his own deeds, then he's a non-Muslim. No other explanation. If he's a person that if he's a person that claims, if he's a person that claims that for example, he claims something that did not reach the level of blasphemy, then he would not be judged as a non-Muslim. So, those three caliphs, because they're ignorant, they somehow affiliated themselves to the Mu'tazila, or they had, let's say, some influence of the Mu'tazila, but their misguidance did not reach the level of blasphemy. I mean, they didn't, for example, believe that the human being creates his own deeds. They did not believe that. So this is why Imam Ahmad, he referred to that caliph as Amir al-Mu'mineen and leader of the believers. Not because the one who believes that the slave creates his own deeds is not a kafir, no. Rather, that's by consensus. The one who believes that the human being creates his own deeds is a kafir by consensus. So it's like the Shaykh said, the answer is that those three did not believe that God is not attributed with kalam as an affirmed attribute of his being. Rather, they said the Quran is created without specifying. With this, they agreed with them, and they did not agree with the other two sayings of theirs. The saying that the slave creates his own deeds, and saying that God is mutakallim with a kalam he creates in others, not mutakallim with a kalam that is an attribute of his being. Hence, some people's usage of the saying of Ahmad directed to Al-Mu'tasim, or leader of the believers, as a supposed proof is invalid. Like Muhammad Sa'id al-Buti, because he relied on that to negate judging the Mu'tazila as non-Muslims without any restriction. How would they not be judged as non-Muslims for their saying that the slave creates his own voluntary actions, when they said that God had the power to create the actions of the slaves, their movements and stillness? The son of Tahir al-Tamimi al-Baghdadi, Imam Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, Imam Abu Sa'id al-Mutawalli al-Shafi'i, Imam Abu al-Hasan Sheeth, the son of Ibrahim, and the Imam of al-Haramain and others. As for Abu Mansur al-Baghdadi, he mentioned that in his book called the Book of Tawheed. As for Abu Sa'id al-Mutawalli, he mentioned that in his book Al-Ghunya. As for Sheeth, the son of Ibrahim, he mentioned that in his book Hazzul Ghalasim wa Ifham al-Mukhasim. As for Imam al-Haramain, he mentioned it in his book Al-Irshad. So here the Shaykh is letting us know that these sayings are documented, and he is referencing them, and he's letting us know where the names of those books, the authors of those books, and usually once you, for example, look through the book, you can find out the page, and oftentimes our sheikhs, they give the page number, and they give the page number, the volume number. So this is something that is good for us, it's something that helps us, because that way we can have these references at our fingertips. We won't. Somebody says, well, what's the proof? Somebody says, oh, who said that? Somebody says, oh, what book is that in? We can easily let them know. We can easily tell them. So again, why is this important? Why is this important? Because some people nowadays don't understand this concept of following the evidence They don't understand this concept of not being, let's say, a fanatic to a certain shaykh or to a certain group or to a certain person. They don't understand that what you have to do is you have to follow the religious proof. You have to follow the evidence. You have to follow what Islam says, and not just go with popularity, and not just go with, for example, the desire. So there's a person named Muhammad Sa'id al-Buti, and he was the type of person that and he made some mistakes, some big mistakes. Among them is that he judged the Mu'tazila, who said that the slave creates his own deeds. He judged them as Muslims, and he didn't say that they're kuffar, he didn't say that they're blasphemers. And the reason he said that is because Al-Imam Ahmad, for example, Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, referred to one of those three caliphs as Amirul Mu'mineen. So he thinks that means, not the Mu'tazila are not judged as kuffar at all. And we say that's not the case, and the reason why Imam Ahmad did that is because that caliph in particular, he only adhered to a certain part, and he did not have the kufr beliefs of the Mu'tazila. So this is what the judgment of the Mu'tazila that we're mentioning. And these are the references that we mentioned. Abu Mansur al-Baghdadi, he mentioned that in his book Al-Farq Bayn Al-Firaq, that the Mu'tazila who believe that the slave creates his own deeds are judged as blasphemers. Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, he mentioned that in his book called Kitab al-Tawheed. Abu Sa'id al-Mutawalli, he mentioned that in his book called Al-Ghunya. And Sheikh, the son of Ibrahim, he mentioned that in his book Hazzul Ghalasim wa Ifham al-Mukhasim. And Imam al-Haramain, he mentioned it in his book called Al-Irshad. So whoever wants, they can look through those books. They can find those statements where they can then read that this is what the scholars of the past said. And so there's no way that someone like Muhammad Sa'id al-Buti could come and say, the Mu'tazila who believe that the slave creates his own deeds are not judged as kuffar, or that there's a difference of opinion. So Sheikh, the son of Ibrahim, he mentioned that in his book Hazzul Ghalasim, with a ha, Hazzul Ghalasim. As for the saying of Ash-Shafi'i, may Allah accept his deeds, I accept the testimony of the people who are deviant, except the Khattabiyya. This is interpreted to mean as long as a kufr case has not been confirmed to him. And the proof to this is that he judged Hafsun al-Fard al-Mu'tazili as a kafir, a non-Muslim, saying to him, you have committed kufr. And what he told him, and what Imam al-Shafi'i told him, it's an explicit statement that cannot be interpreted any other way. He told him, he said to him, لَقَدْ كَثَرْتَ بِاللَّهِ الْعَظِيمِ. So this is not kufran al-ni'mah, as some misguided people say. I've seen that some people say that, like this guy named Hamza Yusuf, he says that when Ash-Shafi'i told Hafsun al-Fard, he debated him, Ash-Shafi'i debated this Mu'tazili, and then after the debate was over, Imam al-Shafi'i, he told him, لَقَدْ كَفَرْتَ بِاللَّهِ الْعَظِيمِ. And what does that mean? And it means you have exited from Islam, and you committed disbelief, you committed kufr. But what's his name? Hamza Yusuf, He claims that this means that a Shafi'i supposedly, which is not true, right? It's perversion. He's just perverting it. He claims that a Shafi'i, what he meant to say was that, oh, you're negating the endowment of Allah. Like when the woman says to her husband, "You never done anything good for me," or "You never helped me." They're trying to say that a Shafi'i, that's what he was saying to Hafsun al-Fard, but it's not the case. So basically, what Imam al-Shafi'i was explicitly saying that he committed kufr. And how do we know this? What's the proof for this? That Hafsun al-Fard, he then said after exiting the session in which he debated with Ash-Shafi'i and was defeated by him, Ash-Shafi'i meant to have me decapitated. أراد الشافعي ضرب عنقي. He said that. So even Hafsun al-Fard, he understood from the words of Ash-Shafi'i that Ash-Shafi'i was judging him as a kafir, and not that he was just negating an endowment given to him by Allah. Because of that, he said, Ash-Shafi'i meant to have me decapitated, meaning, and he judged me as an apostate, and everybody knows the penalty of the apostate, if he doesn't repent, is he gets decapitated. Therefore, the saying of some Shafi'iyya, that the statement of a Shafi'i to Hafs, "You have committed kufr," means not recognizing a blessing instead of exiting from Islam, is invalid. And of course, the misguided people, they copy that what some Shafi'iyya said. This is just as Al-Hafidh Sirajuddin al-Bulqini said in his commentary on Rawdat al-Talibin, where he refuted the saying of Rawdat al-Talibin that the prayer is valid behind the Mu'tazila. Footnote number 1. The author of Rawdat al-Talibin did not mean that the prayer is valid behind the ones among them who have reached the level of kufr. Some people affiliated themselves to the Mu'tazila without believing their kufr beliefs, but other beliefs that did not reach the level of kufr. Despite that, the statement in Rawdat al-Talibin might be understood without having any restriction. Therefore, Al-Bulqini rejected it. So Rawdat al-Talibin is the famous book that was written by Al-Imam al-Nawawi radiyallahu anhu. As though some people, they tried to say, using the statement of al-Nawawi to justify their not judging the Mu'tazila as non-Muslims, they try to use that as a justification. But we say Al-Imam al-Nawawi's statement, supposedly that it's valid to pray behind the Mu'tazili. So what it could possibly mean, or one proper way of interpreting it, is that Imam al-Nawawi was not referring to the Mu'tazili who had those explicit kufr beliefs. He was referring to the Mu'tazili that he did not believe something that caused him to exit from Islam. Because there's a certain parts of the Mu'tazili creed that do not make the person be judged as having exited from Islam. So for sure, Imam al-Nawawi did not mean that whoever prays behind someone who believes that Allah is not the creator of their deeds, and instead they believe that they themselves are the creator of their own deeds. Of course, Imam al-Nawawi, he would not say that the prayer is valid behind such a person. Because it is known, well known in the rules of the Islamic law, that in order for the prayer to be valid, the person that's praying has to be a Muslim. So there's no way that a non-Muslim could be an Imam. Al-Bulqini said, this is contrary to the stance of the elite companions of Ash-Shafi'i, and this is what the student of Ash-Shafi'i, Al-Rabi' Al-Muradi, understood, because Abdul Rahman, the son of Abu Hatim, narrated from Al-Rabi' that Ash-Shafi'i judged him as a kafir. The clarification of that is that the Mu'tazila are not all on the same creed. Rather, some of them agree with some of their sayings, and some disagree with them on other sayings, like Bishop, one of their elders. Hence, it is not valid to judge all who affiliate themselves with the Mu'tazila as non-Muslims. Thumana, the son of Ashras, Thumana, the son of Ashras, one of the leaders of the Mu'tazila, said Indeed, Al-Ma'mun did not agree with the saying of the slave creating his own actions. Merely saying the Quran is created does not confirm his kufr, except if he believed that God is not attributed with kalam except these terms that he creates. How would that be? While the belief of Ahlul Sunnah, those who clear God of being attributed with created attributes, is that the Quran and other than it among the revealed books are an expression referring to the attribute of the kalam of Allah, which is an affirmed attribute of His being, which is not a letter or sound, which is eternal and everlasting, as are the rest of His attributes. However, saying the Quran is created without any restriction is sinful. Yani just like that, to blurt it out, or to say it without any prompting, without any context, without any type of explaining that case that Allah does not speak Arabic or French or English or Spanish or any other language. And so what Allah revealed of words, yani that we recite and that we read and that we recite with our tongue, or that we write with our hands, that we copy it down, those letters, those terms, those languages, those sounds are not the attribute of Allah. Rather, they are revealed terms that are expressions referring to the eternal and everlasting attribute of Allah Ta'ala. So, saying the Quran is created without any restriction is sinful. Nevertheless, when teaching the knowledge of the creed, it is said that according to Ahlul Sunnah, the Quran, with the meaning of the attribute of Allah, which is an affirmed attribute to His being, which is eternal and everlasting, is not created. As for the revealed terms, they are created by Allah, because if it were possible that Allah uttered the letters of the Quran as the believers do, then it would be possible for Allah to be attributed with all the created attributes that the creations are attributed with. Like movement, stillness, relocation, ascending, descending, erring, weakness, sickness, and other than that. And no one who knows the difference between the Creator and the creation would say that. Yani, the author is basically saying, we clear Allah from being attributed with attributes of the creations. We clear Allah of being similar to attributes of the creations. We clear Allah of being attributed with any attributes that are specific to the creations. And so, what does that mean? That means that it is impossible to attribute physicality or any of those attributes to Allah. It is impossible to attribute weakness to Allah. It is impossible to attribute impotence to Allah. It is impossible to attribute movement and stillness to Allah. And it is impossible to attribute letters and sounds to Allah. So we don't say that Allah spoke Arabic. The Wahhabis, they believe that. The Wahhabis, they believe that the Arabic words and letters and sounds that you recite, that is the attribute of Allah. Ahlul Sunnah, we say, those letters and words that we recite, they are not the attribute of Allah. Rather, they are expressions referring to the eternal and everlasting attribute of Allah. We do say that Allah is attributed with al-kalam. We say Allah is attributed with an attribute, eternal and everlasting, that is not a sound, letter, or language, that is not composed of sounds, that is not made up of languages, that does not have a beginning and does not have an end. This is what we say about the attribute of Allah. This is called the attribute of kalam. So we do confirm the attribute of Allah, and at the same time we say it's not a sound, letter, or language. It's not like us. The Wahhabis, they can't understand that. They think that the only thing that you can attribute to Allah, or the only way that you can confirm that Allah is attributed with kalam, is by saying that He speaks Arabic. So they're wrong for that, because they're drawing similarity between Allah and the creation. As for the Mu'tazila, they're at the other end of the spectrum, where they literally say Allah has no attribute of kalam, which is also blasphemy. But Ahl Sunnah, we're in the middle. Yani we confirm the attribute of Allah without similarity. That means we say Allah is attributed with eternal and everlasting kalam, which is not a sound, letter, or language. And that the words that we recite from the Quran, these words are expressions referring to the eternal and everlasting attribute of Allah, which is not a sound, letter, or language, and not that they themselves are the attribute of Allah. So the author said, nevertheless, when teaching the knowledge of the creed, it is said that according to Ahl Sunnah, the Quran, with the meaning of the kalam of Allah, which is an affirmed attribute to His being, which is eternal and everlasting, is not created. As for the revealed terms, they are created by God, because if it were possible that God uttered the letters of the Quran as the believers do, then it would be possible for God to be attributed with all the created attributes that the creations are attributed with, like movement, stillness, relocation, ascending, descending, erring, weakness, sickness, and other than that. And no one who knows the difference between the creator and the creation would say that. Yani, a Muslim would not say that Allah Ta'ala, that He speaks a language. A Muslim would not say that, because whoever says that is a non-Muslim. The author said, there is no proof for the unrestricted statement of some later Shafi'iyya that the deviant sects in the creed are not judged as non-Muslims. Yani, we cannot say what some Shafi'i said, that anyone who is a deviant sect is not judged as a non-Muslim. Yani this unrestricted statement is incorrect. It is incorrect to say that these deviant sects, that they are not judged as kafirs. And that's what a lot of the people nowadays who claim to be Ahl Sunnah, who claim to be scholars who have platforms, who are famous, this is what they do. Yani they'll literally say, the Wahhabis, that they're misguided, they don't have a creed, they don't have a sunnah, they're innovators, they don't have the creed of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but they'll still say they are our brothers in Islam. How is that? Like this one guy who's famous, I think his name is Ahmed al-Sharif from Egypt, from Al-Azhar. It's very strange, it's very strange. ولا حجة لإطلاق بعض الشافعية المتأخرين القول إن الطوائف المبتدعة في العقيدة لا يكفرون لأن هذا مخالف لقول السلف فقد نقل الإمام أبو جعفر الطحاوي عن السلف في كتابه الذي سماه ذكر بيان عقيدة أهل السنة أو سماه ذكر يعني وهو يعني هكذا قال ذكر بيان عقيدة أهل السنة والجماعة قولهم ومن وصف الله بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد كفر. يعني just reading that part in Arabic because it's important anyone to understand it. And the reason that those people who said that saying, that unrestricted statement, is incorrect, the proof against it is what Imam al-Tahawi said in his Tahawi creed, من وصف الله بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد كفر, which we're going to explain it. There is no proof for the unrestricted statement of some later Shafi'iyya that the deviant sects in the creed are not judged as non-Muslims, because this goes against what the Salaf said. Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi conveyed from the Salaf in his book, which he called The Elucidation of the Creed of Ahl Sunnah. They're saying that whoever attributes an attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Islam, is not a Muslim. Uttering letters that come in succession, some letters coming before others, is among the attributes of the creations. When one of us recites the Basmalah, the Ba comes before the Sin, and the Sin comes before the Meen, and likewise what is after it. Each letter precedes the one that comes after it, and the one that follows it comes after the one that preceded it. Comes after the one that preceded it. And this is called uttering. and nutuk in Arabic. And God is not attributed with uttering. Whatever is contrary to what the Hafiz Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi conveyed is rejected. Also, whoever believes that God is a body or has bodily attributes is a non-Muslim. The creed of the Salaf, just as Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi conveyed, is that Allah is supremely clear of having boundaries, extremes, sides, organs, and small parts. And the 6 directions do not contain Him as they contain all created things. Therefore, one should beware of what is in the book called Al-Iqtisad fil I'tiqad, that says that all the deviant sects in the creed who claim to be Muslim are not judged as kuffar, as non-Muslims. Because certainly that is contradictory to the verse in the Quran in Surah Ash-Shura, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. This verse means there is absolutely nothing like Him. Therefore, whoever believes that Allah is an impalpable body or a palpable body, then he has attributed many similars to Him, like light and darkness from the impalpable bodies, and the stars, the sun, the moon, and the human among the palpable bodies. Allah mentioned in the Quran that the impalpable bodies and the palpable bodies are creations, so they have a beginning. Allah revealed in Surah Al-An'am, الحمد لله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وجعل الظلمات والنور. The verse means all praise is due to Allah who created the heavens and the earth and created darkness and light. Allah informed us in this verse that the palpable and impalpable bodies are created. They did not exist and then they began to exist because Allah created them. Likewise, it is mentally impossible for Allah to be attributed with the attributes of bodies, like dwelling in a place, having a small size, having a big size, and changing from attribute to attribute. All of that is negated from being attributed to Allah by this verse, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. As for the one who negates some of the attributes of the creations from being attributed to Allah, while attributing to Him some other attributes of the creations, then this is contradictory to the mind and the religious texts. Hence, had it been possible for Allah to be attributed with bodily attributes, size, color, heat, coldness, and emotions, then that would have been contradictory to the intellectual proof that dictates that the sun, the moon, the stars, and other than them are not valid to be attributed with Godhood. This intellectual proof would not be consistent except according to the creed of Ahlul Sunnah. Those who negate these created attributes that are for the creations from being attributed to Allah, because had Allah been a specific volume, then Godhood would have been possible for the sun. However, the people of truth, Ahlul Sunnah, who adhere to that intellectual proof, invalidate that claim by saying the sun has a specific volume, a specific color, and specific attributes like heat and being located in space, which is its place. They invalidate the creed of the sun worshippers because their belief that the sun is attributed with Godhood is invalid. It contradicts the sound mind. We invalidate their creed without mentioning the proofs from the Quran, like the verse in Surah Al-Anbiya. وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ. This verse means Allah is the one who created the night and the day and the sun and the moon. Hence, since the intellectual proof refutes the claim of Godhood for the sun, even though the sun is a giant size with many benefits to the creation, then how would a rational person deem it permissible for Allah to be a volume sitting on the throne or dwelling above the throne without saying He is sitting? Furthermore, in the Quran, there is what proves that it is not possible for the terms of the Quran to be uttered by Allah. The verse in Surah Al-Takwir, إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ ذِي قُوَّةٍ عِنْدَ ذِي الْعَرْشِ مَكِينٍ مُطَاعٍ ثَمَّ أَمِينٍ. The honored messenger in the verse is referring to Angel Jibreel by the consensus of the interpreters of the Quran. Hence, since the revealed terms of the Quran are recited by him, the Quran expressed that with this statement, إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ, to make us understand that the usual recitation, which is reciting the words with a voice and consecutive letters is the attribute of Jibreel, and it is not the attribute of Allah. And because it says, قَوْلُ لَا قَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ, yani it's attributing the same to Jibreel. So it is the attribute of Jibreel and it is not the attribute of Allah, and what he's reciting. Despite that, it is permissible to say that the Quran is the kalam speech of Allah, with the meaning that those revealed terms are expressions referring to the kalam of Allah, which is an attribute of Allah that is affirmed to His being, like His life, and not with the meaning that Allah recited it upon Jibreel, like how a teacher recites for the student. Among what proves that this kalam of Allah is not a sound or a letter is that it was not mentioned in the Quran nor in the Hadith that Allah utters. Also, and now the utterer was not mentioned as one of His names. Rather, what was mentioned about Allah is al-kalam and al-qawl, and they are synonymous. Hence, whatever kalam or saying occurs from the creations, it might be with letters and sounds. And what is attributed to Allah is different than that. Because it is not possible for Allah to not resemble His creations in something and to resemble them in something else. This is why the verse was revealed with an indefinite term in the context of negation. Because the term shay, thing, that is mentioned in the verse, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, includes all kinds of creations, the entities and their attributes. Therefore, the verse cleared Allah from being a volume or the attribute of a volume, and this is the meaning of what the scholars who speak in the science of al-kalam, of the kalam of Ahlul Sunnah, say. Allah is neither an entity nor an attribute of an entity. That statement of theirs is an explanation of the verse specifically. As for the mushabbiha, those who liken Allah to the creation, they believe that Allah is a volume. And on top of that, they have ascribed to Him the attributes of volumes. According to them, He is an impalpable volume. This is according to those among them who said He is a glimmering light, and a palpable volume according to those among them who said He is a body sitting on the throne, or said He is a body based above the throne without attributing sitting to Him. Both groups contradicted the verse. However, the group that attributed sitting to Allah is worse, because those who attributed sitting to Allah upon the throne attributed to Allah an attribute that is shared by the creations who have minds, like the angels, humans, and jinn, and those that do not have minds, like beasts and birds. Both groups are ignorant about their Creator. Hence, if the sun worshipper debated them, they would not be able to produce an intellectual proof against him, because he does not accept the textual proof. He does not accept the Quran, because he says, I do not believe in your book. Give me an intellectual proof that it is invalid for the sun to be God, using the intellectual proof, and that what you are claiming is a body existing above the throne or settled above it deserves to be worshipped is the truth. And basically the argument between the sun worshipper and the Wahhabi, the sun worshipper would tell the Wahhabi, give me a proof that the sun is not a God, and instead what I should worship is what you say is sitting on the throne or established above the throne or way above in the sky. And so the Wahhabi, he would not have an answer, he would not have a way to answer him. As for Ahlul Sunnah, certainly they have a rebuttal, an intellectual proof that refutes the sun worshipper. They say to him, what you worship, this sun, is a specific volume that has a specific shape, a specific attribute, and a specific location. So how was it specified with these attributes instead of others? So if he says, the sun specified itself with this size and these attributes, it would be said to him, it is intellectually impossible for something to specify itself with a specific size and specific attributes instead of another size and other attributes. Rather, the one who specified it to exist with this specific volume and these specific attributes exists, and he is not a volume and he is not attributed with created attributes. The sound mind accepts that he is the one who exists and is the creator of the sun, and other than the sun among the entities and the attributes of the entities. At this point, the sun worshipper does not find any response. Rather, he will be silenced. All praise is due to Allah that He guided Ahlul Sunnah, those who combined between clearing Allah of all imperfection and confirming this intellectual proof, along with the proofs from the Quran and the Hadith. As for the proof from the Quran, the aforementioned verse suffices. As for the proofs from the Hadith, among them is the Hadith narrated by Bukhari, كَانَ اللَّهُ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْءٌ غَيْرُهُ. Since it is known for certain that in eternity there was neither a palpable volume nor an impalpable volume nor any of their attributes. Hence it is necessary from that Allah is not a body attributed with the attributes of a body. This is an obvious proof as apparent as the sun. But whoever Allah has locked their hearts will not understand it. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. And inshallah, next class, we're starting with lesson 25, which is the prohibition of arrogance and encouraging humbleness. Alhamdulillah, looks like we're getting closer and closer to the halfway mark. Do look forward to finishing this book. It's very beneficial. There's much information in it, many lessons to be learned from it. Whoever doesn't have a copy should get it. Dwaybabooks.com. Order your copies. Not only do you get something beneficial for yourself, but also you help benefit the da'wah. Are there any questions about anything that we mentioned? طيب نهلل لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات وبارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم.